Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Estate Right Now, where we talk about real estate matters that matter to you. My name is Jay Izzo, and we have another fabulous show. We are live here from Lindacraftteam Studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina, part of the Greater Research Triangle Park. Today's show is one that we do traditionally different times of the year. We talk about your yard and things that you should know in regard to yard. And we're in the spring, summer months. We're in April right here when the show is being recorded, and you're watching us wherever you're watching us at DBTV. By the way, thanks for folks DBTV watching us. And also, if you're listening to us on podcast, we appreciate that as well. Thank you. And wherever you're at, give us a positive review. So one of the things we want to do is we always want to help homeowners kind of deal with their yard, because if you live in North Carolina or you've lived somewhere else, there's different things you need to understand about your yard and how your yard works and what you need to do in order to get your yard to be the best that it can be. So what I did is I went back to our friends at Yardology, and I asked the owner, Eric Smith, I said, hey, I need someone to talk about spring, summer yard stuff, right? And he said, hey, I got this new guy. He's really great. His name is Chris Williamson. He's absolutely outstanding. You're going to love him. He's fantastic. So this is Chris's inaugural Real Estate Right Now show. So Chris, welcome to Real Estate Right Now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's talk about grasses this time of year.
Yes.
There's a lot of, and you can pull that down if you want to, or wherever you want to put it.
Yeah.
So in North Carolina, this time of year, we're doing some pre-emergent stuff, right? To get ahead of weeds.
Yes. So this time of year, you're going into pre-emergence. You're doing your aeration. Basically, what you're doing is pulling everything that was dormant during winter and rejuvenating your yard, so to speak.
So, and it seems like this time of year, and I've written about this in the past, and even for this show, that it seems like, springtime in North Carolina anyway, is kind of like we go, oh, the yard looks great. Right?
Yes.
Because when summer comes and we're in July, not so great.
No, not so great, especially with North Carolina heat and humidity.
Right?
Yes.
And so, but this time of year, it looks great. But this is, I also think, is where we go, oh, my yard looks great. I don't need to do anything, but we really should be doing something.
Yes, absolutely. There are so many preventative measurements that you can take leading up to the hot months of June and July. Certain things you want to start doing now to prep for, a heat wave is your yard needs on average each week an inch of rain, an inch of water. Okay. It doesn't matter if it falls from the sky or if it comes out of a hose.
Okay.
Most standard yards in North Carolina and the Southeast need on average an inch of rain a week.
Okay.
So it needs a way of getting around that is, well, how do I know if my yard is getting an inch of rain? Typically, if you go out and water your yard for 30 minutes, that equals about a half inch of water on your yard.
Okay.
So, I can tell people you can stand out there for an hour and do it all in one time, or you could break it up into 3 20-minute sections.
Okay.
And you really want to make sure you're getting those footprints down, getting your yard used to watering, because as the summer goes on, we get more, delugey rains and whatnot. So really what you're doing is you're getting your yard and root system used to water. And it's flushing out all those minerals and nutrients that got stored up from wintertime that didn't have nowhere to go.
That's cool information.
Absolutely.
I've never heard anybody explain it that way.
Yeah.
So then what you're saying is you got to get your lawn back in the habit.
Absolutely.
Of accepting water.
Exactly. Because during the cold months, basically it's your yard basically turns into like a bear. It goes into hibernation, meaning it stops growing. It's just dormant. And that goes the same for fescue and Bermuda. Fescue being a cold weather grass, Bermuda being a warm weather grass. They both go into their phases of dormancy. So just like any other thing, you have to wake it up out of that dormancy.
Okay, so then here's my question. When when do we want to start turning on the water? Is there I mean, I know there's no specific date. I know
Yeah.
like you can't say here in North Carolina,
Right.
okay, May 15th, turn on your water. I know
Yeah.
that's not what you're doing.
No.
But when do you start going, okay, we probably need to start getting ahead of this a little bit and start watering a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. Typically when the temperatures start reaching, around 75 degrees, going up to 80 for a consistent period of time is when you should start getting out watering.
Okay.
Also, when you start seeing periods like this week, we're not having any rain,
Right.
till Sunday. Get out and water the yard. The best times to water your yard is always in the morning, always in the evening. Never water your yard midday. Never water it between the hours of like 12 and 4, 12 and 3.
Okay.
That solar sunlight hitting on the grass, the wet grass, will burn your yard up.
Okay.
So it's really good. It's really important to get out there, water it in the morning, water it in the evening. It doesn't take long, just a little bit to wet the soil,
Right.
just to rejuvenate. And also, as you're doing that, now is the time to get your yard aerated. And what that's doing, you're punching holes into the earth and you're adding oxygen into the ground. That oxygen gets in there with the fertilizers and the grass seeds and whatnot. And that's really what kickstarts your yard back up.
All right. Well, let's talk about, okay. Well, now this brings up an interesting question to me because this just did.
Yes.
And that is, all right, we're putting pre-emergence down probably to about mid-May.
Yes.
Somewhere in there.
Yep.
At least here. And it's a ground temperature thing, right? I think it's like 55 to 65.
55 to 60 degrees, give or take, for, a week to 10 days.
Right. And then up north, they're not doing that yet. It's a little too cold for them.
Yes.
To do that. So if you're in the northern, I know you people watch us all over. So if you're up north, you're not doing pre-emergence probably yet, but you're getting close. But when we put these pre-emergence down, do we have to wait to water when we start getting, because we're getting warm. We've been warm here for almost a week.
Yes.
I mean, we've been in the 80s. I mean, today it's going to be 87. We've gotten up to 90 last week.
Absolutely. So that's a really good question. When you put the pre-emergent down, you can put the pre-emergent down, and before you start watering your yard, you want to make sure your yard is completely dry of that pre-emergent.
Okay.
If you're doing a liquid pre-emergent, make sure the grass is dried off before you start watering. If you're doing a granular pre-emergent, you can go ahead and water it directly, because you want to get that water and get that seepage into the soil as soon as possible.
Got it.
And then you really just want to maintain your yard and look at it. You want to look for, am I getting like mossy areas in my yard?
Yeah.
That is a really good indicator of your yard is getting too much water. If you start seeing like mossy areas starting to pop up, that means your yard is potentially not draining properly. So that's something you might want to cut back watering, in that area as much. So if we see like we're getting that almost like a mossy mildew. Yeah, kind of like what you see on trees. Yeah. That's typical of wet moisture. That's poor drainage.
Okay.
It's okay to still water that area, but there's certain chemicals out there to get rid of that. Lime is an excellent chemical to get rid of that grass moss.
Right.
But you definitely want to make sure this time of year that you're getting out, you're getting, at least 3 days of watering on your yard per 7 days.
Okay.
That is very important.
And we want to do an inch a week.
Inch a week. Yes.
So if we want to do an inch a week now, okay, I get it. Okay. But now let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
When it gets really, really hot, are we going to water a little longer, maybe?
Yeah, typically, if you're having temperatures, 95, 100 plus degrees, for an extended period of time, it's okay to go up and over an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter, inch and a half.
Okay.
That's where you really have to start looking at your yard, maintaining it. Make sure there's no yellowing of the grass tips. That's a really good indicator that your yard is too hot.
Okay.
Direct sunlight's burning those tips off.
Okay.
That goes back to also when you're watering your yard, so Your yard will tell you when it's stressed
Right.
and when it's loving you. And it's really just getting out there, just getting your hands in the soil
Mhm.
and, just trying.
Right.
It's grass, you can
Right.
always grow it right back. And
Right.
that's the beautiful dichotomy of about what we do is, you can take something and just turn it back into something beautiful.
So I have seen people, um, and I thought this was a no-no, but I've seen people lay down sod in the summer. And
Yes.
I've always heard, and maybe it's something I've heard, and I don't think it's everything I've told, is that you shouldn't lay sod in hot weather. Is there a rule on that? Because I see builders do it, because they're always building homes and they got to lay sod.
Yeah.
Is there a rule, or is there something that?
Yeah, that's another good question. And a lot of this comes back to North Carolina, as I said earlier, is really unique because we get to grow warm weather grasses here,
Right.
and we also get to grow cold weather grasses.
Right.
So a warm weather grass like a Bermuda, anything with a short, shallow root base, can be laid down in the summertime with great,
Irrigation.
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Fescue laid down in the summertime is typically a no-no. It's a cold weather grass.
Okay.
That means it doesn't like the heat. It likes more of the temperate temperatures. It is possible to lay it down in the summer, but you really have to maintain a heavy watering of that yard. I mean, it has to stay pretty much moist from seed to germination.
Okay.
Because any deviation of that soil going dry, those seeds will not germinate. Root temperatures will not get to where they need to. So therefore, you just spend a whole bunch of money to,
Right. Because I've seen it where, I think on these more winter or fall grasses,
right.
where they lay them down because people love them because they're beautiful, right? I mean, it's a
Yes.
beautiful looking grass, right?
Absolutely.
And they lay them down. And then what happens is they don't realize, I think, how much they have to water it.
Yes. When sod first gets laid down, it needs probably at least double everything that a normal yard would take.
Mhm.
So if you're watering your normal yard at 1 inch per week, new freshly laid sod is going to require at least double that.
Okay.
Because it's having to grow new roots into a clay base, a new substrate that it's not used to. So it's got to have a moist soil for those roots to push through, the dirt. And if it doesn't, the roots curl and then they die.
Got it.
So it's very important to have, your yard moisture maintained.
Okay. So we've talked about, by the way, great information.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So we've talked about a couple things here to look out for. That mossy look, that we're overwatering.
Yes.
And then we talked about brown tipping.
Yes.
Right. Is there some other things we should look for in our grasses where we go, this may be a problem, and either that I need to correct or that I need to hire somebody to help correct?
Yeah. Typically, when you start getting into fungal issues, say if you got Bermuda, a typical fungal treatment that we see a lot with Bermuda is what we call rings in the grass.
Yeah.
If you play golf, you've probably seen it on a fairway or something.
Yeah.
That is a fungal issue.
It looks like ringworm.
Yeah,
in the grass.
exactly.
It looks like ringworm in the grass.
Exactly. That's a great illustration. It really does. It's to be honest with you, that's about what it is.
Okay. All right.
So those are fungal issues. You can go do an herbicide. It probably will not do anything. That's when I would recommend having a professional company come in, because where it can get really tricky is when you're having to lay down a certain percentage of a certain, concentration onto your yard.
Right.
Too little might not work, but too much might, devastate your yard.
Right.
So if you're going to do it yourself, I do recommend flip the bag around, read the directions, make sure everything is, your square footage is being where it needs to be. And if you're not comfortable with it, please call out a professional. We know what we're doing. We have the infrastructure and the chemicals on hand. to lay down a proper base and to get your yard back.
Yeah, and probably the thing, I know that there's a lot of DIY people, right? Do it yourself. They want to do it themselves, and I get it, folks. I mean, I really do. I get that you want to do it yourself, but when we're talking about these chemicals, this is what you guys do
exactly,
and what's too much, what's too little, and you're going to keep an eye on that thing on a regular basis. Whereas, sometimes what we do as homeowners is we pour it on and forget it. And
we call it spray and pray.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do. We spray and pray that's going to actually fix the problem. Whereas you guys are actually staying on top of it regularly going, is this working? And then you're adjusting.
Exactly. So, what we can do is we'll come out, we'll start that first treatment. That gives us a blueprint of where it's starting in the yard.
Right.
Then we'll go down, go back to our trucks, pull our equipment out, lay down the treatment that's needed for the yard. And then we'll come back on our follow-up. We'll see if it's still spreading or if it's shrinking and dying out and filling back in with grass. Typically with Bermuda is really easy to bring back. It's a shallow root base. It grows completely different than fescue. Bermuda spreads. It's a spreadable grass. I call it it's almost like cobweb grass. You can put a little patch down, come back in a year, and there'd be like just tons of it everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's really easy with, Bermuda to stay on top of those things. Even if you see it in your yard, don't like hit the panic button and be like, oh, I need to tear up everything and start from scratch, because that's not the case at all. Okay. There are, chemicals, and we're professionals, and we can come out and take care of that.
And what do they call that? That with the rings, what's that called?
I don't know the actual name for it.
We're just going to call it the ringworm of grass.
Let's just say grass ringworms. Or anything that looks like it was on Stranger Things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So what are there some other things that we may want to be looking for in our yards that we go, we need to be a little cautious of? Is there anything else that you can think of that's, I guess, really important? Or are those kind of the main things right there?
I would say the other thing is getting into your weed treatments, crabgrass.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
And when you're dealing with weeds, it's a whole lot easier to deal with weeds than it is dealing with, say, fungicides. Because I can't tell you, yes, you can go down to Home Depot. Right. You can buy, some Scott's Turf Builder, weed killer, and go spray your yard comfortably, and have great, outcome. When you're getting into like buying, concentrated solutions and whatnot, that's where I start to tell people to not go that route, because a little is too much and too much is too little sometimes. Yeah. So, stick to those already pre-mixed chemicals where you connect it to the hose, spray your yard, it's already done. And then in that case, after you do that, let your yard dry off. Yeah. And then you just got to stay on top of it.
Yeah. Crabgrass is a really weird weed.
I hate it.
I do too.
I can't stand it.
And it seems that it is very difficult.
It is.
To once it's there, because it as much as you talk about Bermuda spreading,
yes,
crabgrass will spread, and it is a nasty, tough weed. Is that are we I mean, is there really anything that a consumer over the counter can get that really is effective, or is this really, if we've got a problem with crabgrass, we probably should call you out and have you deal with it?
If it's a problem where I would say like 30+% of your yard is nothing but crabgrass, definitely have a professional come out, because it's just going to be too much to stay on top of. Because where you kill in one area, it's just going to pop up in another. Right. Because the only way to kill crabgrass is to actually get it out by the root. Okay. A lot of people, you'll see them out there twisting it out of their yard. Yes. All you're doing is ripping the blades off, and it's just going to come right back up because you didn't get to the substrate, to the root base to pull it out. It's like a tooth. Yeah. If you got a bad tooth, you pull half of it out. Well, you still have those other roots in there. Right. So, crabgrass, is probably all lawn care enthusiast pain in the nightmare to see,
Right.
but it is manageable. If it's small areas, going to your local Home Depot, Ace Hardware,
Right.
asking them, a Scotts turf builder, with some, weed killer will work fine in small areas.
Okay. That sounds good. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. I don't know if this is something in
Yes.
your field, but I want to ask it anyway, because
Absolutely.
I get some people who will occasionally ask me about like planting things
Yes.
in their yard, like flowers, and I'm not a flower guy, so
Right.
I don't know them, but like there's certain like flowers, like I guess there's pansies that you plant at certain times of the year,
Yep.
and then you take them out and you plant at other times of the year. Is there a rule of thumb that and I don't know if this is your area or not, but is there something that you can give a rule of thumb for people about when to plant, when to change out, those type of things?
Yeah. So typically I tell people there's 2 times in the year when you should be planting outdoor plants: your spring season and then your fall season.
Okay.
Your fall season plants consist of stuff like mums, cold weather plants, those real harvesty colors. And then in the spring, you're going to transition into, spring flowers, rhododendrons, azaleas,
Okay.
begonias, those type things. There's really no like, I need to plant it here, I need to plant it there.
Mhm.
But when it does come to, getting it into the ground, you don't really want to start planting anything past, say, 1st of May, just because that ground is going to
Okay.
be really way too warm for those roots,
Okay.
especially if you're coming from a very hot spring,
Right.
which
We're in right now.
we're in.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, walk outside.
I know. Right.
Yeah. So, so I recommend March, April is a prime sweet spot to get stuff in the ground.
So we got about 2 weeks left here.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks.
I mean, as warm as it is,
Exactly.
and maybe we got a week.
Yeah, because I believe next week is going back to like a few days highs in the 50s.
Yeah. So as long as it cools
fine.
back,
Exactly.
we're going to be okay. But if it was to stay hot like this,
if it were to continue, I would start kind of pulling back on some of that stuff
Okay.
because it's only going to get hotter and hotter.
got it.
As the summer,
Yeah.
if we move out of late spring into summer, it's only going to get hotter.
Yeah.
So, you still got 2.5 weeks to play with.
Okay.
Get out in your yard, put some stuff in the earth.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So we got a small window here to start doing some planning, or to finish your planning if you want to do that, for sure. So we got turf, we've got planting. I want to ask you about cutting.
Yes.
Right? Because there's a wrong way to cut. Some people could cut too low.
Yes.
So what's the rule of thumb on cutting different turfs?
Great question. With fescue grass, you want to cut it at 3 inches.
Okay.
No lower than 2.5 inches.
Okay.
Fescue likes to grow tall.
Okay.
If fescue grass gets basically cut below 3 inches in the summertime, it will go brown on you very quick.
Okay.
And why is that? It's a cold weather grass.
Got it.
It's not your very heat tolerant grass. Bermuda, which you're starting to see a lot in this region, a lot of the newer neighborhoods are all laying in Bermuda. Bermuda is easier to maintain than fescue. It's a heat tolerant grass. It's used to heat. It likes the heat. So it kind of, comes down to, do I want Bermuda? Do I want fescue?
Okay.
There's really no,
Okay.
time clock on that. It's just really just getting out there, looking at your yard. Preference.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But with fescue, 3 inches, no lower than 2.5.
Yes. On your first cut of the season, say if you were to go out and cut your yard for the first time, cut it at 2.5.
Okay.
Every cut after that needs to be at 3 inches.
Okay.
Bermuda, low is great with Bermuda.
Awesome.
It's a golf course grass, so it's
Sure,
it's meant to be
Be
shaved.
short. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because you and I we like to see our divots.
I do. And I also like to see the ball in the air when that happens every once in a while.
Yeah, mine does too. It has tendency to go way right or
hit a tree and come back.
or quickly go left.
Yeah.
Is what it does. You've been great.
Thank you.
We've done the show. It goes really fast. It's been a lot of fun to have you on.
Yes, sir.
Chris, tell people how they can get a hold of you and Yardology, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. You can reach us at Yardology, www.yardology.com. Just go on our website. If you have any questions, my name is Chris Williams. You can reach out to me, on our website. All the emails go directly to my phone. If you want us to come out and do an estimate or just, look over your property and, give it a quick overhaul, we can definitely do that. And I definitely want to thank you for having
Absolutely.
us come in today.
Yeah, I want to bring you back again to do another.
We can do it.
Segment. I think this went really well.
Yeah.
I know you were a little nervous about it, but I think as it turned out, it wasn't.
You know what? At the end of the day, it's just two men talking about grass. So, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Right?
We're all weekend warriors. So.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chris. Folks, it's the show. I say it to you all over. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you so much for doing that. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, wherever you're listening. Give us a positive review. And you know what I say to you all over the world? You know what that is? Ciao, everybody.